something else. So in terms of topics, then, you know, obviously there are a wide range of topics that they could be asking you about in part 3, although the same topics do come up quite regularly. But whatever the topic is, then they have the same type of questions. So what we're going to look at now is those types of questions and also a good way of answering those questions. Okay, so if we're going to have a look first of all at the different types of questions. Okay, so I've put them there. I think, Garvit, yeah, food and technology could be a very common question to ask in that situation. Yeah, okay. So these are the 6 different topics, the types of questions that you could be asked in the part 3. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to match those part 3 questions that we just looked at to these types of questions. Okay, so if you look at that first question about fast food, what kind of question is that? Okay, very good. Yes, so very common to ask you to give your opinion. Okay, we can see, do you agree? Or they may say, do you think? Okay. What about the next one? So they're saying, which is more popular? Okay, very good. So again, very common to ask you to compare 2 different ways of doing something, compare men and women, compare 2 different countries, that kinds of thing. Yeah, okay. Then we've got a question about the change in habits over the years. Okay, very good. Yeah. So past and present, trends, we could also call it, you know, talking about trends. And if you notice the question, it's in the present perfect, and that's a very common tense to use when you're talking about changes over time. Okay, so just to bear that in mind in your answer. Okay, and then we have a why question. Okay, very good. So specifically there, we're looking at the reasons for something. Okay. What about the next one? This is often the first question that you are asked. Yeah, okay. So it's, in a sense, it's a little bit of an easier question. So they often start with, you know, just describing some dishes, describing some, you know, different types of information. Okay. Clearly the last one, we've only got one left. So yes, speculate. Okay, so again, a very common type of question is to ask you to think about the future and how things will be in the future, you know, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. So they will always have will in the question, and you will need to be using future tenses also in your answers. Okay, so whatever the topic, you know, whatever vocabulary you need for the topic, these are the questions that they are usually asking you in the part 3. Okay, so it's very important to think about the type of question the examiner is asking you. Okay, and then to use the right language to answer. Okay, so this is where what we call signposting comes in. Okay, so signposting means that you are helping the examiner follow your answer. And this is very, very important for fluency and coherence. Okay, the first marking criterion. So remember, it's not just fluency. People do focus a lot on fluency, but it is also coherence. So you won't get a good mark if your answer is not clear. If it's not logical and easy to follow, you know, you're going to lose a lot of marks. Okay. You're going to use a lot of marks in fluency and coherence. Okay, so you should think about, using these signposting expressions, these linking expressions, in order to give a logical, a well-structured answer, particularly important in part 3, because part 3 is a bit more of a kind of formal answer in that way. Okay, so I'm just going to move forward to the end there. So, you know, if you don't use the linking expressions, it's not really clear what kind of information you're giving. Okay, but if you just say something like, I think it's because, then you're obviously giving your opinion. And if you use something like, that's the main reason, then clearly you're giving a reason. Okay, and these kinds of introductory phrases make it very easy for the examiner to follow you. Okay, so let's have. So we have here again those 6 different question types that we just looked at. I'm going to give you some signposting expressions, and I'd like you to tell me which type of question they go with. Okay, so you can just put the number to make it easier. So if I was going to say, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So a very strong opinion. If you want to give a very strong opinion, that's a great way. I couldn't agree more. Okay. What if we say there are a number of different types of something? Okay, good. That's number 5. You are describing, you know, for example, there are a number of different types of traditional dishes in my country. Okay, and then you go on to describe each dish. Okay. Okay, if we say over the past few years, yeah, it is a kind of comparison, but it's specifically comparing the past and the present. Okay. Again, trends is a good way of thinking about it. Okay. And again, present perfect in your answer. Okay. How about the next one? Okay, very good. Clearly, we're saying in the future. Okay, so that is for our speculation type question. Okay, if we're talking about differences, okay, very good. Yeah. We are comparing. This is the one that we just looked at. So the main reason. Yes, clearly you're giving a reason for that. Okay. I very much doubt that people will. Okay, it's kind of an opinion, but if we're focusing specifically on that last part, we are talking about the future. Okay. So using words like doubt or convinced, very nice expressions. I'm convinced that people will. I doubt that people will. Very nice way of talking about the future. Okay. What about the next one? Okay, I'd have to say, tricky this one. Yes, you're giving a reason. You got that because there. Okay. And again, we're talking about differences here. We've got key differences. Okay, good. Very nice collocation there as well to talk about the key differences between something. Okay. All right, and now we're talking about kinds, sort of different kinds, popular kinds. Okay, so again, we are describing some examples. Okay, if we're making a well, we're going, however, nowadays. Okay, very good. Yeah, so it is a comparison, but it's a comparison about time. Okay. And if I say, well, I agree to a certain extent. Okay, very nice. So we've got there a strong agreement. I couldn't agree more. And we've got a kind of tentative agreement, we would say. So I'm agreeing a bit, but it's not very strong. So, you know, it's good to have different levels of strength in your agreement. Okay, sorry, I'll just go back to that. So, you know, you need to know what kinds of question they are asking you. You need to recognize the kind of question, and you need to use the right kind of language in order to answer that question. Okay, so it makes it very clear to the examiner you really understood the question, and also, you know, that you are going to structure your answer very clearly. Okay, these are some examples. There are lots and lots of other examples. But the most important thing is that you do use some signposting expressions, particularly for the part 3, okay? Saeed, this is recorded and you will be able to watch it afterwards. I'll explain about that at the end of the presentation, okay? So those are the types of expression.